everyone, Anark here, and this is another Anark live stream. Yeah, that's right. Got the whole spiel down at this point. So if you're watching and you're a fan of the channel, you should just like the video before the video even begins, I'd say. If, if you've seen numerous videos on my channel at this point and you still haven't subscribed, you should subscribe to the channel, absolutely. And if, sorry, the cat is attacking me. And if you value the work that I'm doing on the channel, you should go over to the Patreon, become a patron for any amount. That is an enormous help for the channel. Also, you should go over to Means TV and subscribe and use my affiliate code Anark in order to get me a little bit of a cut of that subscription, as I'm sure you're so very concerned with. Either way, this is the beginning of the live stream. So I am currently doing the work of getting it spread to different places, putting the link in different chats, etc., etc. You all know how this goes. How's everybody doing today? Yeah, we got the peep. The cat just, I like how the cat at the very beginning of the stream just runs up and bites me. He's annoyed with the fact that I haven't played with him enough today, I think. I got myself centered on camera. Yeah, it looks like I finally do. Okay, there we go. Damn, Kristen, that's rough. I relate to that. Had one earlier this year. PL, I have not, but I love Rudolph Rocker, so maybe I will. The cat has returned. I think he's going to be a menace this stream. Y'all want to see him? This is Murray. Oh, he doesn't like it. Okay. Okay. That was that, huh? No, he's trying to knock down my light. Stop it. Stop that. Don't knock up. Stop it. Don't be a... That's too much menace. Too much menace. Ridiculous. He's knocking down my lighting. Oh my God. He's so ridiculous. Yeah, Murray is getting big fast. Oh, he's already back there. Is he going to do it again? Is he going to do it again? Hey, don't, you bastard. Why? What is your deal? Do you know how many people are watching you be a menace right now? You could just not do that. Hey. Don't. Stop. Stop. Stop messing with that. Hey. Stop messing with it. Go. You don't need to mess with that. Oh my God. Stop. Oh my gosh. Hey, if you want to hang out right here. He's going right back to it. Stop. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. The spray bottle is authoritarian. Yeah, using coercion. Definitely using coercion. He kept biting and scratching people way too hard, so I had to bring out something to convince him to stop. The spray bottle did work. He stopped biting people as hard. He stopped scratching people as hard. And that was good. He needed to know that it wasn't good. And hissing was not working. Like, people would just hiss at him and be like, what's your deal? Huh? But he wouldn't stop doing the thing. Ridiculous cat. He's been on better behavior lately, but I think he's annoyed that I'm like talking loudly while I've been not paying attention. Sorry, my stream I think is on a delay, and I just saw the video of me spraying the shit out of him as he runs away. Oh my god. No, he definitely does not recognize my authority as legitimate. He just does not like the water, so. Excuse me. I probably won't be on super long today because I have people that'll probably be coming over and not too terribly long. Project Psycho says, I feel like we anarchists got to have a bigger internet presence than we do now. Yeah, I mean, yes, bigger internet presence, but honestly, just a bigger in real life presence. We just need more people doing things in the real world. That's what is needed more than anything. Whatever ideology on the left gets out into the real world and starts doing anything that matters, that is going to be the ideology that flourishes. At this point, the internet is becoming increasingly diminished as a source for communicating information and radicalizing people, or rather, it is becoming incredibly distorted. All the conversations are becoming almost impossible. Barely anybody's actually changing their opinions. It seems like everybody is just locked into a death battle, and I see it's becoming less and less productive. The internet is just becoming a less and less productive place for spreading our politics, is what I'm noticing. I think that YouTube and I think that video format is becoming increasingly valuable because as AI spreads, as we have more of these like artificial or false people that are in the conversations, people are becoming less and less incentivized to have text conversations because they don't know who the hell they're talking to, or rather even if they're talking to a who. And so I think that things like TikTok and YouTube are becoming increasingly valuable because there is a face there. You can hear the person's tone. You know it's a real person. And there are a variety of ways that even if AI becomes really good at video content, that it will never be able to do certain things that real life human beings will be able to do with relative ease. It will be way harder for the AI to do those things, right? You know, like, for example, like right now, I can just hold up a random, oh, I just unplugged something. Yeah, there you go. See, and AI is also not going to do good at that, right? AI is not going to accidentally unplug itself, unplug its own video feed. Yeah, good job, Daniel. You did great. Daniel. Let's see if we can get this work. Oh, look at that. I got it working. Yeah, but like an AI can't just randomly hold up an object like that, right? Or you know, like whatever. Like, so I think that we are increasingly going to see a movement towards video format. And in that sense, I'm glad that I got the YouTube platform established before this took place, because beforehand, Twitter, I think, was one of the big ones. Twitter, Reddit, those are really big places for radicalization to take place. But I think in the current day, we're going to see those platforms enter decline because of the proliferation of AI. So Yeah, an AI can't knock down its lights on accident. An AI cannot enter into a battle to the death with its cat. Like that. There will be, at least there's some verification of a human on the other end. So Project Psycho, yeah, we could use more content creators on the internet, but I just want to note that we need people to be moving into the real world, doing real world things. I think that's probably the most important thing at the moment. People need to begin developing real life projects, need to begin bringing people together in the real world. That is what is going to make all the difference. And you'll find that our ideology will spread, will proliferate in measure to that. Now, obviously, I'm doing my work here on YouTube, and so I clearly don't think that it's a complete waste of time by any means. But I think that one of the problems that we have in the modern day is that the left is mostly an online phenomenon and has almost no connection with regular people. It is completely shut off into a silo of radicals that all talk about their radicalism and how radical they are. And there's basically no room for normal people to enter into our spaces or into any of our projects because we don't have any space for people who are learning. If somebody comes into our spaces and they don't already know basically all of the basics and they stumble or they make a mistake or they have a bad opinion, they're just going to be excommunicated. And so we basically have not created a movement that can interact with the masses. We are essentially a cloister of, a radical clergy, you might say. And I think that is essentially one of the biggest mistakes that we've made in the modern era. So the most important thing is to get out into the real world. Project Psycho, how would you go about stopping MLs co-opting our spaces in the real world? Well, like step number one is just make a platform that doesn't allow them to do so. You just need a formal charter, which essentially says this organization is a horizontal organization, codify consensus, all of that stuff. Creating a charter is like creating an immune system. So no charter, you're going to get co-opted. Create the charter that makes sure that you codify delegation and consensus and all of that, and you have an immune system against authoritarian co-option. Without it, you probably will be co-opted. Confused Lefty says, at what point does an org having principles and not letting anyone who doesn't agree with them become purity testing that limits the size and influence of the org? I mean, I think we're engaged in it currently. So clearly we're in that realm as we speak. I was actually just talking with one of my partners about this just last night. We were talking about people they know. Talking about people who are moving into further radicalism. They're starting to entertain radical ideas, but they're really not there yet. And they're in this place where they're asking, what do I do? And the liberals have all kinds of answers, fewer answers than ever, but still some answers, write your senator or whatever, whatever it might be, like these electoral answers, vote for X, and those answers don't require them to be purity tested. They can just do the thing. On the left, we say, join a leftist organization, but really imagine that some sort of like milquetoast liberal who's just starting to question this stuff, but is not all the way there, enters your radical left org or starts orbiting around your radical left organization. Imagine all of the stupid things that they're going to say, and then imagine how your fellow radicals would react to them having those stupid ideas. And you'll realize this is why the movement's failing. Right? There's not a place for people without like very radical politics who already understand all of the topics, who have already gone through this long period of education and self-criticism and so on. They don't have any place in our movement currently other than attending a protest. And historically, this was dealt with because the union was just something that was didn't really care about your level of radicalization. The union was just this fighting tool. It was a weapon, and it didn't matter if you were like, too liberal or were not a revolutionary and so on. You had a place in the union. If somebody asked, what do I do? The answer would just be start a union, join a union, and that was enough. And they could do that, and they wouldn't have been purity tested out of the union. In our organizations, they absolutely would be. And I think everybody who's here knows that. Everybody who's here knows that those people would not be welcome. They would be shouted at. They would be insulted. They would be belittled. They would be pushed out of the organization, 100%. And they wouldn't even really, honestly, be allowed to join in the first place. So I'm still not centered here. Still not centered. The cat is going crazy elsewhere in the room. I can just hear him running around clawing things right now. Anyway, but yeah, no, that's what it boils down to. Yosef says it's not always safe to let non-radicalized people enter some orgs because of simple security concerns. Yeah, no, I mean, I actually agree with that. I'm not saying that like every one of our organizations should be open to anyone. I think that I'd like, for example, platform organizations, like what you might call the specifically anarchist organization in a specifismo, that needs to have a strict ideological platform. It does not need to be open to everyone, but we need to be creating projects which are open to, if not literally everyone, a lot more people than we are currently okay with letting into our spaces. So the way we deal with it in Cooperation Tulsa is you do not have to have all of our ideological positions in order to volunteer. You have to have them to be part of the organization. So we have a circle we call neighbors, and neighbors, we don't really like, interrogate their ideology. We don't interrogate how radical they are. If they're there, we appreciate their help. And I think that's a big part of it. It creates the internal pressure to move people from the outer circle to the inner circle. I have no idea what the cat is doing, but I can hear him clawing things. So probably I'm just going to be done with this, and there's going to be some chaos over here. So I've seen numerous people mention Rojava. I would really not trust a lot of what you're reading in the news, because it is apparent that a lot of people who are reporting on Rojava don't really understand all of the different structures. So you'll see that, for example, the SDF, the Syrian Defense Forces, are said to be in negotiations with the Syrian state, but then a bunch of outlets are basically reporting as if the SDF has already been absorbed into the Syrian state, even though they're in the middle of negotiations. Furthermore, the SDF is not AANES. It is not Rojava. The SDF is just a military portion of the struggle. And it was formed literally as a confederation, as a cooperative or a collaborative effort between many parties that are all trying to fight against ISIS, defend Syria, essentially, fight against Turkey and so on. So like SDF entering into negotiations with the Syrian state is like a bygone conclusion. You would assume as much. SDF is a negotiation with the Syrian state. That is what it is by its very nature. So that we would expect when there's a new government, they're going to enter into new negotiations. But it does not appear as if anything has been finalized so far. And people who seem to be in the know don't seem to believe that it has been absorbed in the sense that we are hearing. Alan Dvorkin, no. I haven't hid anybody. I have no idea what you're talking about. Juice Crew Clips says, I honestly wonder if a lot of leftist spaces are just people who feel alone and want other people to share their perspectives so they can feel like other people are on the same page. Yeah, this is often called social clubbing. This is, cliquishness. This is lifestylism. This is a huge portion of what the modern left is. The modern left is mostly just a big social club. It barely has any praxis. Its praxis is just protests and, generously I want to call it mutual aid, but it's mostly just charity. And yeah, no, we don't really have a praxis in the modern era. It is just a bunch of social clubs. One of the reasons why Cooperation Tulsa functions like it does, one of the reasons why we own land and are developing the land and planting a food forest and, installing above ground garden beds is because that's actual praxis. Growing food and feeding people is praxis. But, this requires a long-term strategic thinking. This is something I've noticed. The left wants instant answers. They want things that are easy and straightforward. So there are people in town who act like we're not doing anything because we are planting things, we're planting trees. Trees are going to take time to grow. It's going to take time for what we are building to yield results. They don't want to wait. They don't want to wait months or years for results. They want results right now. They want to get the food and distribute it. They want to, go to a protest and feel good, yeah, that's not how it works. That's the reason we have no power. Everybody wants instant gratification and they're not willing to stick in for the long run and do things that are going to take a long time, that are frustrating, exhausting. People I notice only want to do things that give them instant dopamine. And then, maybe they get really into it. They get the dopamine fix out of this or some organizational thing. And they're like, yeah. And then as soon as the dopamine is gone, they're gone. That's it. They're done with it. And that is unsustainable. That is the reason we don't have any power. People, I'll say it to everybody here, but the dopamine wearing off is not an excuse to stop. You have to keep going when the dopamine wears off. Organizing for revolution cannot just be a special interest. Because special interests will end in a fluke and, just one day you wake up and you don't have your special interest anymore. And I'm sorry, people cannot afford for you to just abandon very important things. It's great if it was a special interest for you to do what needs to be done and that can push you towards doing what needs to be done. That's great. But you have to have a commitment that endures after that special interest. When your special interest becomes something else, you have to have the force of will to commit yourself to doing what is right, regardless of whether it gives you a dopamine fix. And I've just seen so much of it at this point, and it's very tiring, very tiring. As Victoria's Gardenosaurus says, it's not over when you're tired, it's over when it's done. God damn, I wish we need to print that on something and just put it up at Flat Rock. It's not over when you're tired, it's over when it's done. Kristen Supine says, I think one of our biggest issues is commitment and we're simply not building enough. Agreed. Yeah, no, I think the big reason we're here is because we haven't built enough in the past. And now here we are, the crisis is here and we don't have shit to show for it. We have nothing, we don't have a union movement. We don't own a bunch of land. We don't have a network of cooperatives. We don't have shit. Everybody just protested for fucking 60 years. And now what do we have? Nothing. I mean, you know, we have a bunch of, in some cases, close-knit radical groups, but in many cases, a bunch of splintered cliques that all hate each other and all have purity tested each other until they can't even form coalitions, you know? Cy Maurice says, we've taken the critique of delayed gratification, discipline, and delayed to such an extreme degree. Oh, I must have missed a previous statement. If you haven't, I recommend reading Black Rose's new article on mutual aid and organizing. Yep. Yes, I think that, you know, people have to learn delayed gratification. That's just a big part of it. It just does not, people want instant gratification and it doesn't work. Instant gratification methods don't work. I've been so frustrated by this for years now. I remember, you know, it was years ago that somebody was, it's not somebody, everybody was spreading around that article by Crime Think that's like talking about how like everything needs to be fun and like we just need to, you know, our resistance needs to be joyous. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great if that were possible, but I'm sorry to tell you, it's not going to be joyous to do a lot of the things that need to be done. A lot of the things that need to be done are going to be tiring, exhausting, discouraging. And maybe after you have achieved the goal at the end of a long arc, you will feel joy and there will be a period of celebration and there will be parties and all of that. And along the way, of course, there will be joy insofar as being around your allies. And of course, there will be lots of celebrations for small victories in the meantime. But this idea that everything has to be joyous, I think this is an extremely first world perspective. I think this is a perspective that comes from everybody being coddled, everybody being addicted to instant gratification. You know, you look at revolutionary struggles in places that aren't like in the first world, places where things are already hard, where living is already hard, and nobody's talking about how their struggle needs to be joyous. You know, maybe some aspect of it is joyous insofar as that you see your victories and you celebrate all of these small victories that lead you to your big victory. But this idea that everything needs to be a party and everything needs to be really fun, it's nonsense. It's just not real. It'd be good if that can happen. Don't get me wrong. If you can make the things fun, you should do it. Like if you can make the things fun and you can be effective at the same time, that's the best. That's the best of both worlds. Do it if you can. But if what is necessary to be done is not fun, that's the rub. I'm sorry. That's just how it works. And we need people to accept that now before they start this shit. And we need people to stop spreading this idea that everything we do has to be fun, that everything's going to give them instant gratification. It's not. That's just not how this works. Okay? Revolutionary struggle isn't done because it's fun. It's done because it's necessary. You understand? It's necessary to stop a global ecocide. It is necessary to stop oppression. That's not going to be fun a lot of the time. Most of the time, that's not going to be fun. So yeah, that article has pissed me off for years at this point. I'm so tired of everybody looking for instant gratification, looking for everything to be fun. And as soon as anything is not fun, soon as anything no longer gives them gratification, as soon as the dopamine fix is gone, they're gone. And I'm sorry, for me, that just intimates the unseriousness of any of those people. If because it's not fun, you quit, you were never serious to begin with. You didn't really care about the issue. If you cared about the issue, you would keep going even when it's not fun, even when it's hard. Okay? I'm surrounded by people who have that kind of commitment. Not very many, but I've made sure to bring those people in close. The people who keep working, even when it's not fun. The people who finish it when it's done, not when they're tired. You know, like that's what we have to. Those are the people that you should bring in close. Okay. And that's not to say, once again, I don't want to give everybody this idea that you need to become some curmudgeon where anytime somebody suggests we should have a party or we should celebrate or, you know, oh, we can make this more fun by X, that you should tell them, no, don't do that. Yeah, celebrations are good and necessary. They're great ways to unwind, and it's good to emphasize your victories. You know, it's, if you can make things joyful, do it. Of course, make things joyful. But if you should prioritize the people that when it's not joyous and when there's not something to celebrate yet, and when the project is going to take years and they keep working, those are the people you should prioritize. Those are the people you want to bring in close. That is the important people. Those are the people who aren't going to betray you. The people who are just there for the dopamine fix, they'll be gone as soon as the dopamine fix is gone. Blake, there's this Crime Think article. I'll try to find it. It's like, your activism is boring or something. And that article pissed me off to no end. Yeah, your politics are boring as fuck. It's such an annoying article. I hate this article. Yeah. So, I mean, we see here that we've gotten a few people. Long Defiant, member now for 15 months. I appreciate you. Long Defiant says, sometimes we have to get involved in things that aren't our core passions just to build our networks. The fun can come later. Thanks for all you do. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let me use Cooperation Tulsa as an example. I hope this doesn't sound like sacrilege, but I didn't care about planting gardens. I didn't care about agriculture. I don't have a green thumb. I didn't grow anything before Cooperation Tulsa. I didn't know how to grow anything before Cooperation Tulsa. I did it because it's necessary. I did it because we have to be able to grow food. That means that I have to get outside of my comfort zone. That means that I have to go talk with people I wouldn't regularly talk with. I'm an atheist, and yet I organized around people in churches. I had to keep my fucking mouth shut when I disagreed on certain things, because that is what is fucking necessary. That is what is necessary to get things done. And this is the attitude people need to be taking up. Okay? Yeah, I'm sure it makes you uncomfortable to be around people that disagree with you. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, you do have to hold your tongue sometimes. And yes, you absolutely should hold your tongue sometimes. Sometimes it is not going to be beneficial for you to start an argument with somebody who you disagree with. Sometimes it's going to be better for you to call them in rather than call them out. Have a personal conversation with them later if you have a problem. But you're also going to have to get outside of your comfort zone. You're going to have to be around people that you don't necessarily agree with. You're going to have to do things that don't come naturally to you. You're going to have to do things that make you deeply uncomfortable and stressed. You're going to have to be able to weather stress. You know, sometimes people will be like, you know, sorry that, you know, I'll like tell them what needs to be done. You know, I'll give them a list of things. They'll say, what needs to be done? And I'll say, this needs to be done. And they'll say, oh, well, I'm just not good at that. And it's like, I don't really respond because it's like, I don't know what to tell you. That's not an excuse. Like maybe for you, that's a good enough excuse, but I'm not going to respond to them with like, well, too bad. But that's the reality. Too bad. I don't know. I'm sorry if that's not your wheelhouse. It needs to become your wheelhouse. Sorry if that's outside your comfort zone. You need to get outside your comfort zone. Sorry if that makes you feel afraid. You need to learn how to live with fear. Okay? Like you need to learn to live doing things while being scared. You need to learn to talk with people who make you a little bit afraid when you talk with them. You're not sure what to make of it, but you need to learn to do that anyway. This is all part of success. If you cannot get outside of your comfort zone, we are going to lose. I don't know how else to put it. Straight up. And might I add, you need to be able to get outside of your comfort zone without having a meltdown when somebody disagrees with you. Like that's the straight up truth of it. Yeah, people are going to say really stupid shit, y'all. They're going to say really stupid shit. But you need to be able to listen to people say stupid shit and not fly off the handle, but calmly explain to them why what they said was stupid. That's a big part of it. You need to be able, you know, so like, my friends, a few of my friends are involved in Cooperation Tulsa. And one of them was like, Daniel, I never thought I'd see you out there digging holes and planting trees and doing all this, because they know me. I was like the intellectual. I was the person who was going to do the brain work. You know, I had friends around me who were in the trades, who repaired cars and did whatever, right? And I was never interested in that because I thought that was never going to be something I did with my life. I never needed to know how to, repair machines or plant crops. Well, guess what? I was wrong. That's necessary. And I had to push myself to learn a bunch of things I wouldn't have done. I had one job that was a physical labor job, and that was catering. And you know what? I'm still doing physical labor every single weekend, working my ass off. I'm not making excuses for myself. Yeah, it hurts. Yeah, I get exhausted. Yeah, my body is is sore afterwards, but I do it anyway because it has to be done, right? I talk to people whom I disagree with all the time, and I don't have little meltdowns like I see people do online. I guess, maybe it's an expression of where I'm at right now, but I'm kind of tired of the excuses. I'm tired of people making excuses. People need to figure out how to do it. People need to, if people have a hurdle, I need you to tell me how you're going to get over the hurdle. I don't want to hear that there's a hurdle anymore. I'm kind of getting tired of hearing the hurdles. You tell me a hurdle, and then I want you to tell me how you're going to get over the hurdle. That's what I need to hear. I need to hear people who go, this is my problem. Here's how I think I'm going to overcome it. Do you have any way to assist me in that? I'm getting increasingly tired of, here's my hurdle. I haven't done any thought about how to overcome it. I just have a hurdle, and I'm staring at the hurdle, and the hurdle seems overwhelming. It's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Fascism is here. You need to figure out how to get over the hurdle. There's not always going to be someone there to tell you what to do, right? There's not always going to be someone there to tell you to jump the hurdle. You need to develop the skills to jump the hurdle. And I'm sorry if that sounds bitter. I'm sorry if I sound like a curmudgeonly old man, but getting tired of it, getting real tired of it at this point, where this is the make or break moment. Okay. The make or break moment is here, and people need to start acting like this is the make or break moment. Somebody said, is that why you encourage learning Stoicism and Buddhism? Yeah. These are good. They have a bunch of very valuable, tools within them. Even if after learning about Stoicism and learning about Buddhism and maybe learning about absurdist existentialism, even if you don't want to call yourself a Stoic or call yourself a Buddhist or call yourself an existentialist at the end, that's fine. But you need to internalize a lot of the things that are being said and recognize that they're giving you tools for living in a difficult world. They're giving you tools for pushing through difficulty, for overcoming stress, or really living with stress, right? Yeah, that's absolutely why I emphasize them. That's absolutely why I keep mentioning them. I think they have a lot of incredibly important tools. I still don't call myself a Stoic or a Buddhist, for example, but Buddhism and Stoicism taught me a lot of valuable things. And I think that they're directly pertinent to what we're discussing. Sorry, I rambled for so long. The chat has just gone there's all kinds of questions and tags and stuff. Kristen, I haven't read Berserk. At this point, I've heard so many people talk about it. I kind of have an idea of what's going on there, but I haven't read it, so I don't really know what Guts' actual philosophy is. But the idea that one has to be able to struggle through pain, absolutely agreed. XJI nails it. Society is designed to make people default to instant gratification. It makes them better consumers. It's as much an environmental issue as an individual one. That's precisely correct. I'm not saying that, of course, that people chose this. I understand that it was, the result of them living with the conditions of current society. It's like, I get it. But people have to do the work to get out of it. People have to do the work to regain their agency, to recognize once again their own responsibility to act, their own responsibility to do what is necessary. And so, yeah, no, but I think it absolutely is linked to capitalist brainwashing, and it absolutely is linked to everybody always being given all of these forms of instant gratification. The fact that we're constantly flooded with easy sources of dopamine means that when we have to work hard at something, we're not used to it. We don't have the skills. We haven't cultivated the skills that allow us to keep pushing through that. Lighthus says, I want to say that I'm very partial to anarchist organization, but I've been coming up against the problem of the lack of resources among the people who are most radical. How do we create structures that can supplant the hierarchical structures of the state when the state takes the majority of our resources? So this is an example of one of those hurdles, and I don't want to call you out here, but it's an example of a hurdle without an attempt to solve the hurdle. Right? Because look at Cooperation Tulsa. Okay, what's going on in Cooperation Tulsa? So we, just like any other leftist org, started with no money. We didn't have any money, but we didn't say, oh man, we don't have any money. It seems like we're fucked. We started devising solutions to somehow get money to do things. Like, once again, just, I mean, I'm sure that if I were to ask you, I mean, that's what if me and you were sitting here face to face, what I would do is I would say, you tell me the answer. Okay. And I'm sure what you would start doing is start giving me a few answers. And so what did Cooperation Tulsa do? We essentially created our social media. We started signal boosting our efforts and our goals. And we put out a call for a GoFundMe to build a community garden at a historically black church during the George Floyd uprising. We raised thousands of dollars that way. That was us saying, we don't have money. How are we going to get money? Okay. We didn't say like, oh, because we're on the left, we don't have money, ? We just went to work figuring out how to get the money. Okay, so then same thing, we do another community garden. Okay, this time we say, how are we going to get money? Well, after that first one, we started entering talks with somebody who was impressed with the work that we did there, a woman named Mary Odom. And she said, hey, I like what you did there. I have some land and it's basically a dumping site. I don't know what to do with it. And I'd be happy to donate it to you because right now it's mostly just a tax burden to me and I have to mow it all the time and I'm getting tired of it. So we formed a 501c3 and we created all of the legal structure that was needed and we accepted the land. Look at that. Now we have resources. Okay, then we need to make another garden. We've chosen to make another garden with another historically black church that we apply for a grant. The grant has no strings attached other than that we just have to do what we say we're going to do. We apply for the grant, we get the money, we spend it. But notice, once again, I don't mean to call you out, but this is a perfect example of what I meant. You know, you see there's a hurdle, but to you, it's almost like that's it. It's just that there's a hurdle. But why didn't you start trying to think of solutions? Being an organizer isn't just recognizing where all the problems are. It's looking at the problems and devising solutions. And you need to start trying to think in that sense. And I'm not going to get off on a rant about this specifically because it's not like, this isn't really about you. This is, unfortunately, you're just the first example of this after I had my big long ramble. So it's not about you specifically. The left is stuck in this mindset of criticism without solutions. They want to problematize, but they don't want resolution. And I think a lot of this is because of postmodernism. That's all postmodernism did. It was all critique with no solutions. And that's become the norm on the left. All critique, no solutions. So people aren't in a solution-oriented mindset. People aren't trying to think of how to overcome hurdles. They are content to think of hurdles. They are content to recognize limitations and say, oh, well, there's limitations. I guess that's it. We're screwed, right? No. Like, for example, I'm thinking about how, oh, we don't have mass integration. We don't interact with normal people almost at all. Oh, we don't have a mechanism for interacting with normal people. And if we try to bring them into radical spaces, they get pushed out, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not thinking about that. I'm being like, well, I guess we're fucked. I'm starting to try to think of solutions. Oh, okay, well, what's that mean? We might need different rules for who is in the neighbor circle. That might mean that we need to start door knocking. That might mean that we need to start going to community events. That might mean that we need to start doing more community outreach. That might mean that, the list goes on. You start trying to think of solutions to the problems. And it just requires actually actively thinking about it. You don't have to be a genius. You just have to think. You need to spend as much time thinking about the solution as you spend thinking about the problem, right? You need to think about the problem, recognize it. Then you need to think about the solutions. And you need to spend, once you feel like you've got a good grasp on the problem, it's time to stop thinking about the problem. You need to spend all your mental energy on thinking of the solution. That's the way I look at it. And if you can't think of a solution, maybe you can return to thinking about the problem again, but only return to thinking about the problem long enough that it can inform you about new solutions. That's what needs to happen. We need people who are going to overcome hurdles, people who are going to think about problems and then start thinking about solutions immediately. And when they think of the solutions, they don't think of them in the abstract, they think of them in concrete. How can I do it? Okay, well, that solution requires A, B, C, and D. I'm going to order these. Which one needs to be first? A comes first, then B, then C, then D. Cool, I need to start working on A. We need people who are process-oriented. We need people who are motivated to get shit done. And I know that's not normal on the left, but that's what has to be done. Has to be done. Once again, I'm sorry for picking on you because you're actually like, it's not like you said anything really bad here, but once again, you were just kind of the first person who popped up asking a question like this right after that ramble. So, yeah. Knowledge and defense. I've not heard of La Via Campesina. Let's see. People will say stupid shit. Anark. Yeah, that you can take that one to the bank. Sai Maurice says, what do you think was the cause of this sort of psychological retreat among so much of the left? It's such a huge departure from the old left and even much of the new left. Yeah, I mean, I know my opinion's not popular on this, but I really do think a big part of it is postmodernism. Postmodernism is all about problematizing, all about criticizing, and it doesn't offer really any solutions. And if it offers any solutions, they're often extremely defeatist. They don't achieve anything. Like Foucault basically says, like, power is everywhere. It permeates everything. The power structures are not just these discrete things, and these discrete, codification of laws. They're also the relationships between people, and people prop them up through their internal behaviors. So what does that mean? Oh, well, it means that, we need to focus on micropolitics, the politics between individuals and interpersonality. And no, that just doesn't work. That's not correct. That's not how this works. You need to build mass organizations. If not mass organizations, you need organizations, and you need lots of them. And you need these organizations to provide alternative institutions. And postmodernism is just rife with this stuff. It's all criticism, no solutions. All it has is a critique. It's all problematizing, no resolution. And it's valuable insofar as that it offers really good critiques. A lot of the critiques it offers are good, but the problem is the critiques just are overbearing. They go too far. You have this critique of language where, language, no two people are going to understand anything in the exact same way. And when they communicate, there's always this element of miscommunication, which, we have people talking about as far back to the foundations of postmodernist thought. Yeah, it's true, but people can still communicate things to each other. And yes, I know that like Derrida, for example, would agree with this. That's an iterative process of us clarifying terms and coming closer and closer to understanding. But people don't emphasize that part. They don't emphasize that there is this iterative cycle of understanding. They're stuck on that part where we can't communicate properly. So, or for example, you know, you've got these critiques of eras of knowledge, right? Okay, knowledge is socially contingent. There is no such thing as big capital T truth. All there is subjectivities, which themselves kind of reify into different social structures, different structures of knowledge, different quote unquote ways of knowing. Yeah, that's true. That's like in a sense, like insofar as we're talking about like the fact of the matter, that's true. But what about the part where we try to actually attain the truth? What about the part where we actually do try to find out knowledge? What are our systems for gaining knowledge? What is our system for getting closer to the truth? They don't have any answers. All they have is dismantling. They don't have any, it's all deconstruction, no construction. They don't have answers to anything, and they don't even try to give answers to anything for the most part. And when they do, they're bad answers most of the time. Foucault gives terrible answers as to what to do. And that is tiring to me. And it's tiring that everybody tries to deny what I'm saying. And I'm like, cool, let's talk it through. And by the end, they're just literally just verifying what I said. It's like, and I don't know why. It's almost like the left is impervious to hearing these facts. It's like they religiously worship postmodern thought. It's like they religiously worship these key figures. And it is a problem. Our movement is all deconstruction, all critique, all problematizing, without any construction, without any solutions, without any resolution. That's the problem. That's the problem. Everyone knows how to tear things down. Everybody knows how to take things apart. Everybody knows how to critique endlessly, but nobody knows how to do anything. Nobody knows how to build anything. Nobody knows how to create an organizational structure. Nobody knows how to talk with people. Nobody knows how to clarify their meaning, to have a healthy debate or healthy conflict. This is, in my opinion, a direct result of the proliferation of postmodern thought into the left. And this is not me making a call for a full return to modernism, because, like I said, postmodernism's critiques were valid critiques. What they said about modernism was largely correct in big sweeping brushstrokes, but it doesn't matter, mostly correct. And so those critiques can't just be forgotten. It's not as if we can, return to the sort of hubris of modernism. So what we have to do is we have to develop this new paradigm, a paradigm that recognizes the limitations of knowledge, the limitations of communication, the limitations of language, the limitation of paradigms or epistemes. We have to recognize this. We have to keep all of these critiques in mind and know that they're true critiques. But we have to recognize that they're not as totalizing as they were made out to be. These critiques were exaggerated in their how big they were made to be. They've made us think that there is no such thing as the truth, which is nonsense. That's like anti-science. Like, that's just false. If that were true, science wouldn't work, y'all. Science would not work if there was no such thing as the big T truth. The only true critique is just that we may not have direct access to the big T truth. All we might have access to is little t truth. Fair enough. We don't have necessary access to big K, capital K knowledge. Fair enough. But we can get closer to big T truth. We can get closer to big K knowledge. So we need to exit this deconstructive, critical orientation. We need to enter a constructive orientation. And the fact, for me, I think I would less believe that this were so much at the center if people were not so religiously attached to postmodernism. If when I said this, more people were just like, that's interesting. I see what you're saying. If that were the response, then I probably would stop saying it, because I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, people seem to be open to this critique. But every time I say this, there are the postmodernist zealots that come out of the woodwork to deny everything I'm saying. They come out of the woodwork to obscure, to not a shocker, problematize, deconstruct without solutions. All they try to do is tear it apart. That's their only mode of interaction. And in that sense, it's a perfect reiteration of everything I've said. So I haven't scrolled down in the chat here, but if that's what you're doing right now, just know you are confirming everything I said. Like, it's literally an the act of you coming at me with the deconstruction, with the criticism, etc., is actually a demonstration of the correctness of what I've said. You have chosen the exact orientation that I am criticizing. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. It's getting so old at this point. Deleuze and Guattari are the best of them, okay? Deleuze and Guattari, so because people have mentioned Deleuze, of course. I think Deleuze and Guattari are the exceptions to this rule. I think that Deleuze and Guattari, pretty much my only criticism of them is they're obscurantist. That is to say that they are hard to read. I think, and it's purposely so. And this is another thing that I really dislike about postmodernism. It's not even trying to be clear. It's trying to confuse people, it almost seems like. Like, they think that it's a virtue to be confusing. And Deleuze and Guattari are no exception to this fact. But I do think that as I've dug in and heard summaries and everything of Deleuze and Guattari, that I enjoy a lot of what they have to say. And I think there's a lot of value in what they have to say. I think that they definitely do critique, but then they actually do provide solutions. Like, they are the sorts where they're like, yeah, we'll tear down the old structure, but here's a new structure. You know, they actually do give a new alternative. And in that sense, what I've said before is it kind of seems to me that Deleuze and Guattari might be a sort of embryonic metamodernism within postmodernism. I would say that they still maybe like qualify as postmodernism in their historical orientation, but that some of the qualities of their work is metamodernist insofar as that it's the rejection of this pure problematizing, the rejection of pure critique, and it's not just that with them. So they strike me as metamodernist in that sense. Sorry. So long answer to your question, Sai, but yeah, I mean, this has annoyed me for years. And, you know, I remember when I first came into this, I sort of had this same, conception. But it was, you know, I didn't quite know as much about the topics, and people would tell me to read, and I'd be like, okay, I'll go read. And so I would read, and I'd be like, yeah, I mean, that was enlightening, but it didn't really change my critique. I don't really see how that wasn't exactly what I said. And they'd be like, well, you didn't understand it. And be like, okay, well, let's talk about it. And then we'd talk about it, and it would be exactly what I said. Which is so frustrating. And then they would just get into this big long thing where they just defended the thesis. And it's like, okay, cool, but that was exactly what I said it was. You told me it wasn't. And it's almost like you're like philosophically gaslighting me. Like, what are you doing? Just stop. Like, why can you not accept a critique of your ideology, or no, I won't call postmodernism an ideology, you know, your body of theory? Why can't you accept a critique? Like, it's super weird. So it's been years of me reading the theory, understanding what they're saying, making critiques, them denying it, then us having a conversation and them affirming everything I said, and them saying I still didn't understand it. But really what they mean is I did understand it. They just don't like my understanding. They think that if I understood it, I would agree with it. And the problem is I do understand it and I have criticisms. So yeah, I'm just tired of it. I think postmodernism was a grievous damage to the left, a grievous damage. It is a wound we still have not healed from, and we have to move into the future. We don't need to go back to modernism once again. To return to modernism is to return to hubris, to return to the belief that we can create these perfect, all-encompassing structures. That's can't work. We have to recognize that can't work. But that doesn't mean that there isn't this process of attempting, that we don't attempt to systematize and understand. And then we figure out what's wrong with our systematized attempt. We make corrections. That's the scientific method. The scientific method is about attempting to create the systematized understanding and then critique. Oh, well, what's left over after critique? Cool. Now we resystematize. It's a repetitive process. You problematize, but then you solve. Whereas postmodernism is all problematizing, and modernism tends to be all attempts to solve without a good recognition of their own limitations. So that's why I don't call myself a modernist, nor do I call myself a postmodernist. I call myself a metamodernist, because there has to be a healthy interrelation between these two phenomena. Yeah, sorry. These rants today have been so long that by the time I look at chat has like had its own whole conversation in response. Yeah, wow, okay. Knowledge and Defense says, what do you think about the individualist argument that the polity is too rigid and a community council can actually result in a co-option target? Maybe that's why Rojava became more hierarchical. This word polity, I mean, people seem to be using it however they please. I've now heard, people. Essentially, I heard an original conception in Andrew's video. I disagreed with it. I've already said this much. I'm not going to continue on. Then somebody clipped my criticism and they showed it to the originator, which I am... Let me see if I can find the thread where it's being discussed. That's annoying. When I type in polity, it shows me so many results that are not the one I'm looking for. Okay. So yeah, somebody clipped it, showed it to Sean Wilbur, who's the person who originated the terminology that Andrew was using. I mistakenly said it was Kevin Carson, but he made some critiques of what I was saying. And then after those critiques, basically just sounds like polity means hierarchy. Okay. So if that's what's meant, anarchists aren't suggesting polities to begin with, and a council would not be a polity, essentially. That being said, if we're just looking at the other part of the critique without that word polity in there, because that's sort of just a confusing piece of terminology in many occasions, too rigid and it being a result, it resulting in a co-optation target. Anything that works will be a co-optation target. That's the thing that I think a lot of individualists are missing. It's not about creating something that is not a target for co-option. Everything that works, everything successful is a target for co-option. The fact that they want to co-opt it means that it's valuable or that it's a threat to them. So obviously, if you create something that works, it's going to become a target for co-option. The council is no more or I'll put it this way. The alternative to creating something that has a structure is creating something that has no structure, and that's something that doesn't work. Things that don't have structures fall apart. They shift too much. They're too fluid. They don't create this mechanism for accountability. They don't create mechanisms for people to make long-term decisions. You know, like you need to make a decision about, for example, we'll say, use like planting a tree as an example. To plant a tree, you have to think about what that place, that space is going to be used for decades, or really almost permanently, because trees live so long by comparison to human lifespans. Okay. So when you plant a tree, you are doing something that requires long-term thinking, and there may be strategic aspects to that. Okay. That requires a body which has some relation to that, a body which can have long-term accountability, which can have some long-term interaction with that thing. Affinity groups and fluid bodies that don't have structure, they aren't going to allow you to do that. They'll fall apart in 2 months. 2 people in your affinity group of, 5 people are going to get angry at each other. And then, it's all just going to dissolve. And now your whole strategic plan is gone. So yeah, the reason why affinity groups are not good co-option targets is because they're not desirable to co-opt, because they don't work. They work for direct action. That's what an affinity group is for. An affinity group is for direct action, and it is for short-term solutions. And really, truthfully, that's not a big threat to the power structures that are. Short-term solutions aren't going to solve what the problems we got. So yeah, that's why they're not co-option targets, because they're not powerful. They don't have power. So why are long-term councils going to be co-option targets? Because they do work, and they are powerful, and they are places where we as the people can be empowered. They're threats. They're threats. Or they look like shiny objects to people who want to control them. So yeah, obviously they're co-option targets. They're co-option targets because they work. Cy Marie says, yes, everyone keeps looking for the one true form or the one true non-form that can't be co-opted, but no such thing exists. That's why consciousness still matters. Exactly. There is no such thing as a form that cannot be co-opted. We can desire to create one that is less able to be co-opted, which is what we should do. But I believe that that is a formal horizontal power structure. Formal horizontal power structures are the things that actually are the most able to resist being co-opted, because those are the places where there is actual formal mechanisms for accountability. But that doesn't mean that it's impossible to co-opt them. It absolutely is still possible to co-opt them. It's impossible to co-opt anything, even affinity groups. Affinity groups, all you have to do is just get somebody into the affinity group, and then they can just ruin everything, because there's no formal structure for accountability. All they have to do is just create infighting and purity testing, and the whole thing will just explode. So affinity groups are not superior in resisting any of these things. The affinity group is just for short-term direct action. That's what the affinity group is for. Cy Marie says, the individualist rejection of permanence reveals its weakness when you consider things like long-term physical infrastructure, which relies on long-term social infrastructure to maintain. Exactly. That's precisely correct. This is the reason why I reject adhocracy when I hear it brought up. You can't ad hoc your way into a complex society. Complex societies require interrelated infrastructure. They require everything being woven together. Things that are woven together require permanent structures to maintain them. That is not a feature of hierarchy. That is a feature of human cooperative social structures. When humans develop cooperation at larger and larger scales, more and more permanent things come out of it. Permanence is a necessity to maintaining a complex and cooperative society. That's just a fact. Impermanence leads to things that don't function. Okay? That's just the fact. You know, impermanence is a thing that is essentially not going to effectively do anything for very long. If it pops up and dissolves, well, now next time it pops up again, it has to start from scratch. You know how much work goes into creating something from scratch? I think a lot of the people that talk about this, that talk about these sort of ad hoc mechanisms, these impermanent mechanisms, they are not aware of what it takes to start something again. Okay? It's not as easy as just being like, well, let's just start a thing and then boom, the thing exists. Starting a thing takes years sometimes, especially when the thing is hard. When the thing is hard and it requires expertise and you have to get a bunch of people woven in together to do something complex, that takes so much work. You can't just make it and then dissolve it and then make it and dissolve it as you please. That's not how any of this works. That's delusional. That you're living in a fantasy land if you think that's how anything works. It's not. And that's because things have to be organized. Organization takes effort. Charters have to be written and passed and deliberated. That could take you months all by itself. And then you have to get the people together that can do it, which means you have to recruit people that have pertinent expertise, and not only pertinent expertise, but the time and effort to put into it to actually make it happen. And so I fully reject adhocracy. I don't think it works I don't think it can work in any world. I think that it's possible that we could create formal technological structures that make it easier for us to form new groups if there is some underlying protocol, perhaps. But that underlying protocol, that is a long-standing structure. That is the opposite of impermanence. That is permanence. The protocol is the permanent thing now. So what you've done is you still have a long-term horizontal power structure, and it is the protocol. So, yeah. Yeah, so Anunk Christie says, affinity groups and all things anarchist are not organizing groups. Maybe if the second part was taken out, the second and all things anarchist, if you were to just say affinity groups are not organizing groups, but a rethinking of ideas, sure, maybe. Affinity groups are in the place of friendship. No, I disagree. Somebody kind of mentions a problem with that later. Not an organizing method of anarchism, but a way of life. I disagree. It is an organizing method. Affinity groups are where people of similar affinity who have a similar goal in mind come together and they form an informal structure that is based around carrying out a particular need. So I don't really agree with that. Yeah, as Beatrix says, so me and my friends who are politically split are an affinity group and then anarchist somehow? Exactly. That's not how it works. Affinity groups come together based on common ideas and more specifically a common goal that they want to achieve. This is going. I'm like trying to follow the conversation here in chat, and it's gone all over the place. I'm having a really hard time picking back the thread back up here. Little Makwa asks, random question, but were you already an anarchist when you started studying physics? Yes. I was already an anarchist when I started studying physics. I would say I started drifting towards anarchism as soon as I got involved in Occupy Tulsa. And I got involved in Occupy Tulsa. Then I started learning about all kinds of different things. I started learning about Noam Chomsky and Howard Zinn. This got me reading about the CNTFAI and the Spanish Civil War, and that moved me more and more towards anarchism and learning specifically about anarchism. And then after that, years after that, I went on to get a degree in physics. So yeah, that was, so I occupied Tulsa was 2011, 2012. Let's see, I'm not going to do the math on that, how old I would have been and everything. But yeah, no, I went off and got a physics degree after that. Oh, I'm out of focus. Wow, you're right. I'm very out of focus. Better. So I was just rambling as a blurry anarch. As Sai says, more libertarian socialists in STEM. That's exactly right. Personally, I think that learning about how the universe works, learning physics, will just lead you towards anarchism, lead you towards libertarian socialism. When you realize how much of what the universe is comes together by agglomerative dynamics iterated from the bottom up, you start to understand that the whole universe is basically libertarian socialist. It's Me Spiv says, what do you think about Proudhon? Have you read him? I started reading What is Property a long time ago, and I didn't finish it. I skimmed the whole thing, but I didn't finish it. I kind of thoroughly read the beginning and then skimmed the rest of it. So I wouldn't say that I read it, but I'm kind of familiar with Proudhon by that. Knowledge and defense, I would just really like if you did not spam your questions. Like, I'm reading through the chat, so if I didn't respond, it's just, I guess, you know, not the topic I'm trying to discuss today. Carlos says, can you elaborate on the universe as libertarian socialist? Oh, God, no. Yeah, no, I mean, that's a little bit of a euphemism. I'm not being exact in the sense, like, I don't really mean it like that, like, but I mean to say that there are analogous ideas going on here, okay? For example, one of the main ones is when you start learning about chaos theory and complexity science and the concept of self-organized criticality, and you realize that systems become more than the sum of their parts, right on the border of order and chaos, you start to hear, this starts to sound a lot like what anarchists have been saying. The system has to have enough structure to hold together. It can't be too chaotic. Things that are too chaotic in the world dissolve. That's the reason why I'm not an individualist anarchist. Individualist anarchism makes the mistake of thinking that chaos is good. And authoritarianism makes the mistake of thinking order is good. But I think that what an anarchist should be recognizing is that it's about resting on the border between order and chaos. It's about, this is where what they call self-organized criticality takes place. And this is like scientifically understood. And this is where you get things that act like more than the sum of their parts. And that is very similar to what anarchists are trying to say. Basically, systems, almost every system that forms the universe comes from a rule at the bottom being iterated, and then the rule being iterated creates a new structure, a new standard for behavior on that scale. And that new standard for behavior creates a new strata of existence. So I'll use an example. The universe started as a quark gluon plasma. I'll just simplify by telling you what that means is that everything was quarks and gluons. That's the smallest stuff we think can exist. Okay, those are the base building blocks of existence. Okay, everything was too hot for anything else to happen. The early universe was quarks and gluons in a plasma, which is just insanely hot. You understand? You know, our current plasmas are not quark gluon plasmas because that's how hot that plasma was. And what happened was as it cooled, that's a chaotic state. Okay, that's highly chaotic. Too much energy in the system. Everything's bouncing everywhere. Nothing can even bond together because it's too chaotic, too much chaos. So what happens is as the energy goes down, as it cools off, then all at once, the particles, the quarks and the gluons aren't moving too fast to bond together. Now some of them start to click together. And as this process proceeds, as the heat goes down, as the heat in the universe descends, you start moving out of this realm of pure chaos and you're moving towards order a little bit because now things can form orderly structures, permanent structures. Okay. The ability to form these permanent structures then allows us to get atoms. Okay. We get atoms out of that because we're moving out of the realm of chaos towards order. We're not out of the realm of chaos yet. We're moving from pure chaos. We're starting to get structures now. And guess what? Atoms, that's a whole new paradigm of the universe. Okay? That's a whole new paradigm of the universe. Atoms are the periodic table, y'all. You look at the periodic table, this is how all of chemistry works. Atoms come from the universe cooling down, leaving the realm of pure chaos, moving more and more towards this cusp of order and chaos. And then, hey, guess what? You know, maybe you start with simple atoms, but over time, heat continues to decline. Heat continues to decline. Once now gravity can also start to kick in. Now you've got huge clouds of dust that used to span the whole universe, essentially. Now they can start kind of agglomerating together. They can solidify into these huge bodies that, you know, suns and planets and so on. Okay? That comes from us moving further out of the realm of chaos towards this cusp of order and chaos. And all of this took place by sort of these algorithmic behaviors on a smaller scale becoming standardized. And then the standardization creates a new strata. The quarks and gluons clump together, they create atoms. And then you get atoms clumping together, you create more complex atoms, you start creating molecules. And then the molecules clump together into more complex molecules. And before you know it, you're starting to get, in certain places, now you've got life. It's another new strata of existence. This is a demonstration of what anarchists are saying about politics. Okay? This is a perfect analog to the anarchist theory of politics and political structure, which is to say that it has to arise from these iterative sort of algorithmic behaviors at the smallest scale, which then agglomerate and agglomerate and agglomerate at larger and larger scales. And the social anarchist goes further as to note that you cannot sway too far off of that cusp. You cannot sway too far into order. Otherwise, you're just going to get things that are not flexible and fluid. And you cannot stray too far into chaos. Otherwise, you'll get things that dissolve and don't have enough permanence to create anything of any substance, right? You know, like that's very anarchistic. That is very anarchistic, you know? So that's what I mean when I was saying that it kind of is like the universe is very libertarian socialist. I don't mean it in the strictest sense, but I mean to say that a lot of the underlying contentions of the anarchists and the libertarian socialists more broadly are very much like the contentions that we see in complexity science and as we understand cosmological evolution. It does not at all mimic an authoritarian structure. The universe does not work like an authoritarian structure. You know, that would be like there being one node that told the whole universe to do something. No, the universe arises from iterative dynamics that take place at the lowest scales, and they iterate up into new scales, and these new scales of complexity. I am going to grab a drink real quick. Yeah, as Tempest Lord Raihan says, every big thing is built on small things and complex are built off of simple things. That's exactly right. In fact, there is like a principle of system science, and I forget what it was. It's basically like that a system has to be demonstrated to be able to work at a small scale before it can be iterated into larger scales. There's a name for this principle, but I don't recall the name of the principle. Yeah, so people also say, I came to these same conclusions when I studied biology. Yes, I mean, that's the thing, is biology is just another strata of existence, right? Like, you know, I started with a quark gluon plasma, but it builds and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up, and eventually you get to biology, right? You know, beneath biology is chemistry. Right? And then you go from chemistry into biology. And then what's the next strata up from biology? Evolution. You essentially now have a whole system. Once again, here we have the same principle. You iterate, you build something more complex. Now the complex thing has new rules. The new rules create the rules of a new strata. And that strata is then able to continue to iterate. And kind of what I'm laying out in part 2 of a modern anarchism is that I think anarchism is essentially us trying to take the principles that make things iterate and emerge in the universe and apply them to human society. That's what it is. It is us trying to create the next scale of emergence. And the reason why that all of these hierarchical systems keep killing the world, why they make us miserable, why they alienate us, why they destroy the ecology, is because they're based in trying to be too far into the realm of order. And too far into the realm of order is static and unchanging and doesn't have enough fluidity to make anything new. Nothing in the universe arises from that. You know what's really, 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 really ordered? Black holes. Is that what we want? You know, is that what we're trying to model? I don't think so. I'm not trying to model black holes. It's not the goal here, right? So we're not trying to create things that are too ordered. Fascism is essentially the fetishization of order, and therefore it is the fetishization of a death drive. Fascism is suicidal by nature. It is self-sacrificial of its own base. It wants to destroy that which produced it. And that's why it can't last. That's why it doesn't last. So in that sense, we are trying to create something that is not too ordered, yet at the same time, not too chaotic. That's the problem. That's the issue with the individualist anarchists, is that they fetishize the realm of chaos. But the realm of chaos is the realm of entropy. That is to say, it is the realm of degradation, of dissolution, of things falling apart, of things dissolving. That's not what we want. We want to dissolve the mega machine, but we don't want to dissolve the structures of liberation. So yeah, that's what part 2 of A Modern Anarchism is all about. If you're interested in that, go watch part 2 of A Modern Anarchism, because that's essentially what the argument of that entire video is. By the way, I won't be on for too long today because people will be coming over. So I'll probably be leaving in not too terribly long, but okay. Confused Lefty asks the question of the day, and that is, when is part 4 coming out? Yeah, fair enough. I will do you all a favor. I've been thinking about making a post on a community post that is just like my progress, but give me just a moment here. This is progress. Will it even let me? It won't even let me. It's way too long. I can't give you a time. I could show you my progress, but yeah, no, I'm getting pretty advanced, far through the video part of this. So I don't know. I don't want to give a time. I'll do like Blizzard used to do, and I'll say when it's done, but I got a donation of $50 from Salon. Salon says, have you heard about this abundance liberalism thing, which is all the craze right now? Ezra Klein argues that cutting regulation will lead to growth and innovation. Sounds like neoliberalism to me. Yeah, that's just neoliberalism. That's not new at all. When they say it's all the craze, that's what they've always been saying. Nothing. Why are they acting like they're saying anything new? They're just saying the same thing they've always been saying. My God. I mean, the liberals, wow. That is a demonstration that the Democratic Party is going to be destroyed, because that is just demonstration the Democratic Party still thinks it's the 90s. They still think it's the 90s. They still think that all they have to do is pivot to being conservatives and that's going to fix the problem. Absolutely fucking mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Like, truly, the Democratic Party is utterly incompetent, has absolutely no conception of the moment. They are utter failures, and they will be annihilated by this moment. Random Bird Boy says, aren't black holes a response to the chaos that emerged from something collapsing to protect the world from the singularity? I don't know about this last part, to protect the world from the singularity, because it's not protecting. I wouldn't say. I don't know about that, because protection is a conscious impulse. There's no conscious impulse in the production of a black hole. Also, it's not clear to what degree what is at the center of a black hole is actually factually a singularity, because it's not clear what the hell a singularity even is in our universe. Something that is infinitely small is still a contested idea within physics. It's something that mathematically can't be denied. Mathematically, indeed, singularities exist. But in a practical sense, it is not clear what it would even mean for something to be infinitely small. That's, I think a lot of physicists, including myself, and I wouldn't say I'm a physicist because I'm not a practicing scientist, but a lot of people who have some knowledge of physics are a little bit inherently skeptical of the idea that there is any such thing as an actual singularity in the universe. But to be fair, the math suggests that it must be. But insofar as protecting the world from singularity, I don't know about that. Because once again, and it suggests a subjective impulse, the conscious impulse. As for black holes, I don't think they're a response to chaos. Things collapsing, unless what you mean is the dissolution or the dissolving was chaotic. I mean, I guess the planet doing the collapse and then letting off its coronal mass ejections and so on, that could be considered a chaotic event, but it's very, how should I put it? Predictable. It's very predictable. It's taking place from a very understood process. It's like inside of it is chaotic in a sense. The sun was formed from something kind of chaotic, the star itself, which it probably came from, was formed from a chaotic process, which is, gravitational accretion disks and all of that. But the black hole, I think maybe if I'm trying to understand what you're getting at here, though, I think what you're trying to get at is the idea that this black hole arose from a chaotic system. And that much, I think, is true to some degree. I think that is true. It arose from a chaotic system. And I think you absolutely can get things that jump that boundary very far. They go really, they just go straight from very chaotic to very orderly. Absolutely. I don't know if I would qualify a sun as being a very chaotic thing, though. Or a star as being a very chaotic thing. It maintains its form over a very long period of time. Yes, it's doing this sort of fluctuating process, but, when I'm trying to think of things being chaotic in the universe, I'm really thinking about the chaos of an electron cloud, and I think about the chaos of where the electron is. That's very chaotic. You can't even predict it in a sense, because you can predict like its whereabouts, but you can't predict where it's actually going to be. So, when I think of a sun and I compare it to an electron seems way more chaotic than a sun. But to be fair, there are many more elements in the sun, and I guess it depends on how we're kind of qualifying chaos in this sense. It's true that there are many possible states for the sun to be in. So it has a higher potential, entropy we could formulate, and entropy is related to chaos in a sense. So I don't know if I agree with the characterization precisely, but I think I understand what you're getting at, which is to say that a highly orderly system can arise out of a highly chaotic system. And to that, I agree. In fact, if I were to look at, the arising of a black hole out of a chaotic system, I would say that absolutely, insofar as what has been said about individualist anarchism being too chaotic and therefore not being able to make anything that lasts, here we also have why it is susceptible to centralization taking place and why that it produces actual power vacuums, and these power vacuums get seized by the worst conceivable people, tyrants, people who want to put everything into strict order. That being said, I wouldn't get too obsessed with these parallels. I think that these are good ways to understand. We should think about these dynamics. I think it's good for us to think about the dynamics, think about the parallels, but don't get too obsessed about the parallels, because we aren't that strata. We aren't that strata. We are many stratas up from that, right? That's like gravity and molecules and stuff. We're up from that. We're up from that as the agglomeration of molecules. Then you've got biology. Then you've got evolutionary biology, or rather, evolution as a system. Then you've got ecosystem interactions, and you've got humans up there at that scale. So don't get too bogged down in these parallels, because we aren't an accretion disk around a sun. We aren't a black hole, right? But the metaphors can be useful. Got another donation. Got two donations. Okay, first donation was from Achilles Run. Achilles donated $10. He said, or they said, why has the nuclear family structure formed? Where did it come from? Love you and your content. There are so many things to say about where the nuclear family came from. The nuclear family, I guess you could say, really came from a bunch of historical social pressures. Okay, one of those being that capitalism desires an atomized populace, a populace which is broken into a bunch of little pieces. So an extended family, that's not good for capitalism. Capitalism doesn't want an extended family. It wants atomized families. It wants them into the smallest possible structure. And the smallest possible structure is mother, father, children. That's what they want, right? So they want to break it into pieces, break it into pieces, break it into pieces, littler and littler and littler. Whereas the extended family is an example of social integration, which means that people have support systems. And that's the opposite of what capitalism wants. That's the opposite of what capitalism needs to survive. So, you even see this insofar as that at the height of what capitalism wants, it also doesn't even want children who continue to live with their immediate family. Okay. So it gave them a nuclear family, but they're still not even allowed to rely on the nuclear family. As soon as they can move out, they're expected to move out and get their own job. So like this is further atomization. Right? It just keeps breaking us down into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. And before you know it, it's going to want us to not even have friends, for example. It wants us to have no support networks. It wants us to be utterly isolated and deprived so that we're easy to exploit. That's essentially the dynamic, the social dynamics that leads us to the nuclear family. But if you wanted exact historic dynamics, that would be a much longer story with much more specifics. Eric Gray donated $5 and he said, fun random question. What is your favorite anarcho-feminist text if you have one? I mean, I guess for me, I see a lot of overlap between like queer anarchism and anarcho-feminism. I do like Emma Goldman, who is often qualified as an anarcho-feminist. But I read a lot of queer theory, which once again has a lot of overlap, but I don't know that immediately an anarcho-feminist text comes to mind. What I've noticed is a lot of anarcho-feminism is individualist. There's a lot of individualist anarcho-feminism, and that makes it not very appealing to me. I would like to see more social anarchist anarcho-feminism. And if anybody can recommend some more social anarchist anarcho-feminism, that would be great. And I understand the historical contingencies as to why that's the case. But nothing immediately comes to mind. Insurrections at the intersections. That's a good one. Let's see. I'll bring that up. Insurrections at the intersections. That was a really good one. I enjoyed that a lot. There we go. And where's the other one? Yeah, Refusing to Wait. It's also a really good one. Refusing to Wait. Also, I really, really enjoyed that. Both of these are awesome. They're basically intersectional anarchism. And I cited both of these in part 1 of A Modern Anarchism. Got another donation of $5 from Mike Working, and then it limited your name there. I can't read the full name. But Mike asks, do you think economic growth can be made green, or do you think we should move toward degrowth? Happy early Earth Day. So it's like, I guess economic growth on what terms? Economic growth in capitalism? No, that can't be made green. Capitalism cannot be made green. Capitalism can be made less ecologically destructive, but its basic feature is that it is based in hierarchy. And so it absolutely cannot be made green. And as capitalism grows, it will be more and more destructive. As for can growth be made green? Yeah, in an alternative society, we could grow and develop healthy relationships with nature. It would have to be a very different kind of growth. It would have to be a growth that is not based in extraction, but is based instead in solidarity with the ecosystem. And if we had some recognition of our integration with the ecosystem, that is to say, if we could achieve third nature as bookchin puts it, then yeah, we could grow and that could be green. But that would require a completely alternative economic system, which we don't have. And so in that sense, we should not want capitalism to grow. We should want capitalism to essentially shrink, because insofar as that it continues to grow, it will continue to destroy the ecosphere. So Xander also donates $5 and says, do you plan on doing more streams with Marlo and Arjang? I loved the post-election stream you guys did. Yeah, quite possibly. I don't want to get too repetitive with anything on this channel. So I'm trying not to, none of these appearances. I don't want to keep having the same people on or keep going on the exact same shows. No, it's possible that there might be exceptions to that if I wanted to formally create some kind of show with somebody. But, trying not to get too repetitive. Elfie asked, what is third nature? That is a long discussion, which would get us into bookchin's philosophical concepts of first and second nature. And so I'm trying to remember, I think Eco Tech Bro did a video on, oh wow, it doesn't even pull up. It's wild. His page doesn't pull up? How is that possible? There. Oh, it's because there's a dash in there.
View.
Okay. So I think it's talked about here in this video about bookchin's philosophy of nature. So I'll just link it. Give me just a sec. Anyway. Eric Gray donates another $5 just to recommend a text. I appreciate that. Eric says, here's an anarcho-feminist text that's more up your alley. Feminism and Organized Anarchism by Brazilian Anarchist Coordination, NTL. Damn, yeah. That sounds like that's right up my alley. There we go. Let me get that brought up. There we go. Cool, cool, cool. Sweet. Associated with Black Rose and Farge and all of that. Okay, cool. I'm going to put that in my Discord real quick so that I have it in a place. So since we're partway through the stream, I just want to remind everybody, like the stream. If you haven't yet, you should subscribe to the channel. Also, if you support the work that I'm doing on this channel, you should go over to my Patreon and become a patron, which is patreon.com/anarch. I'll even do you the kindness of giving you a link straight to it. Here it is in the chat. Go become a patron. Yeah, that'd be cool if you'd support the work I'm doing. That's a great way to support me. Obviously, I appreciate everybody who's donating on stream here. That is also a huge benefit and absolutely does factor into my income. So yeah, I appreciate it. Let's see here. Catching up with chat. So people are having a definitional discussion about the word family, not really sure what's going on there. Sort of confusing, TBH. But yeah, let's see. Still trying to catch up. Rebel Kaito says, hi, love the content. ANCAPs say that a free market creates more jobs. And because workers can jump to another job in the same domain, managers can't treat them like shit anymore. What do you think? That it's false. I mean, that doesn't mean managers can't treat them like shit anymore because they have to work for a manager. It's like there's a limited number of places they can run to. And as companies continue to monopolize and get bigger, which is what capitalism does, it creates monopolies. That means that there are actually fewer workplaces. And because there are fewer workplaces, that actually means that there are fewer places to run, which means that the workers have less and less actual bargaining power. So it's false on every front. It doesn't create more jobs. It creates fewer workplaces. Fewer workplaces means fewer places to run, which means workers are weaker. Furthermore, the simple fact that you can run somewhere doesn't mean that you're not going to be exploited. When everybody's exploiting the workers, all you're doing is running from one slave master to another. Like, what's it really matter whether, you know, Joe is my slave master or Bob is my slave master if they're all my slave master? Now I just get to choose my slave master. It's better than chattel slavery, but it's not better than slavery in a sense, right? I mean, it's essentially just choosing slave masters. And yeah, no, I mean, they're wrong. ANCAPs are living in a fantasy world. And there's a reason why that there is no example of an anarcho-capitalist society. And when you look at the examples of what they support extreme state repression. So like right now, most ANCAPs are huge fans of like Elon Musk. And what's being done with the government right now, what's being done with the government right now is fascism. So the ANCAPs, they're just admitting they like fascism. I don't see any ANCAPs talking shit about what Elon Musk and Donald Trump are doing. They love it. And guess who else loves it? Millet, who is acclaimed ANCAP, but Millet's coming over here loving on fascism. So what we should really gain from this is ANCAPs are lying to everybody about what they actually want. They don't actually give a shit about small government. They don't give a shit about a strong market. It is essentially a veiled fascist movement. There may be some who have been duped, and they believe it in that sense, like people who are successfully duped by the con. But the people who developed ANCAP theory, the people who are the most notable figures, they're really just fascists in disguise. There is no such thing as anarcho-capitalism. That's not real. The only place it exists is in the fantasy of the dupes. That's it. Careful Dev says, hey, Anark, what should we do with the bourgeois after the revolution? Well, if we did the revolution properly, there won't be any bourgeois because we will have expropriated all of their property, which means they won't be the bourgeois anymore. XJI nails it. Anarcho-capitalism is just a very strange way of saying corporate feudalism. That's exactly right. And that's why they actually support Millet and Musk and Trump, is because they want to put in place corporate feudalism. And just like in feudalism, there is often a king, there's often a monarch, but they want the system to be able to break apart as corporations please and have a monarch as they please. The Network State Manifesto really dives into that topic. They even list anarchists as their primary enemy. That's exactly right. Anarchists are the eternal enemy of all tyrants. That is what you'll find. There's a reason. One of the hardest parts about being an anarchist is that you are assailed on all fronts. Everybody recognizes that every tyrant recognizes you are the limit on their tyranny. Anarchism is the true liberatory movement of humanity. It is the true anti-tyranny movement. And that is precisely why everybody wants to destroy it. It really is not any more complicated than that. And that's the reason why it's hard being an anarchist. You're just surrounded by ignorant people who are purposely mistranslating you, tyrants who want to misinterpret you, co-opters who want to destroy your movement and steal its words and confuse people about what it means. It's infuriating to be the only people who are truly committed to anti-tyranny in that sense. Very, very, very tiring. But yeah. Thurna, I think is how you would say that name, says, what do you think of ContraPoint's new conspiracy theory video? Have you seen it yet? Yeah, I have. I thought it was really good. I've actually been wanting to talk about conspiracy theories lately because they're actually so important in a political sense. I thought it was a great video. You know, I'm not a ContraPoints hater. People might think I'm a ContraPoints hater because I made a video where I criticized ContraPoints' views on voting, but I'm not a ContraPoints hater. Sure, maybe ContraPoints has done one or two things that people could rightly criticize, but I think people exaggerate how much they hate ContraPoints. I think Natalie has gotten a bad shake in the community. People are way too mean to her. I think it's way out of control. I feel bad for how she's been treated. Anyway, good video. People should watch it. Caleb says, I think ContraPoints needlessly punches left a bit in the conspiracy video, but otherwise it was a banger. Yeah, I mean... Yeah, like I said, I mean, ContraPoints has just been needlessly attacked so many times by the left. I kind of get the bitterness, but I would prefer if ContraPoints were a little more open-minded on leftism in a general sense. I'd personally love to have a talk with Natalie about all of these politics and hopefully maybe find some common ground, because Natalie seems like a really smart person whose heart is in the right place and has got a bad shake by left culture. So... I saw somebody talking about me. Who are they? Oh, you're talking about Hasan or Hasan? Yeah, I've said before that, you know, maybe Hasan sometimes promotes views which are harmful, but I don't think anybody is really like using Hasan as their like political jumping off point. I don't think almost anybody is going like, yeah, like Hasan, you know, I agree with Hasan and all the radical topics. You know, what's my radical revolutionary viewpoint? Like Hasan's viewpoint. Like, I think most people watch him as a news aggregator. They just like him commenting on topics, and he has a really big and diverse audience of people who just want to see him comment on different topics. I think he's mostly harmless, to be honest, even though he does have some opinions I really don't like, which is to say he's kind of a campist at times. But honestly, lately, I've even seen him kind of easing up on that. Been seeing him criticize China. I even saw, he just kind of released some clips today and yesterday where he's even criticizing Hamas. And I honestly, that's a big step for him. I think that shows some integrity, because he is so clearly somebody who, you know, is commenting on the Palestinian genocide. And, you know, it may not be popular with some people for him to criticize Hamas, but he should. And we've talked about it on stream before. It's like Hamas is certainly not blameless. You know, Israel like purposely tried to make Hamas be the one that represented the Palestinian people so they could excuse themselves committing a genocide. And so, you know, Hasan, I think that Hasan's mostly harmless, and where I disagree with him, I don't think he's doing much harm. But I mean, I definitely do disagree with him, regularly, but yeah, I'd go on there. If Hasan wanted to have me on there, I'd be happy to talk with him about all this stuff. Beatrix, he has been criticizing Hamas lately. There are clips that have been uploaded recently. He even basically just said what I said, which is that Hamas got very low actual approval in the election that they've got voted in, and that election was a long time ago now, and that it's reasonable for people to be displeased with them. So that's good. I'm glad to hear that pivot from him. Maybe not even a pivot, to be honest. I just don't think he commented on it beforehand. Salon says, it's funny, every once in a while he'll say, maybe the anarchists are right. Yeah, I know. I've heard him say that. And the thing is that I think he's just a little bit resistant to it because, you know, he's been confronted with so many like individualist anarchists who make anarchism look stupid. And so he just thinks it's unserious. But I think that Hasan could definitely be more sympathetic to anarchism if he were given a little bit more of a coherent viewpoint about anarchism. Yeah, and as somebody said, I think hierarchical realism is part of it. I think Hasan's got some hierarchical realism going on. Yeah, he just says stupid stuff about anarchism. He doesn't say, he has no real critiques of anarchism. He just says silly stuff. Most of the time when he's critiquing anarchists, he just critiques them as being lifestylists once again. So he's talking about individualist anarchists. It's so funny. People are criticizing me for pronouncing his name both ways. Hasan or Hasan. His name is pronounced Hasan. That's how you pronounce that name. However, a lot of people call him Hasan. My default is to say Hasan, but it's incorrect. It's not. That's the American incorrect way of saying it. It's Hasan. That's how you should be saying his name, Hasan. However, I just cannot help myself. I keep saying Hasan. I keep doing it. Anark says, what are your thoughts on Fred Hampton's view on anarchism? Same symptom. He thinks that anarchists are individualist anarchists. When I'm saying individualist anarchism, I'm talking about actual anarchists who are individualist anarchists. So I'm talking about people that borrow mostly from Max Stirner and Warren and Benjamin Tucker and Lysander Spooner, and that kind of like permeated into left culture, where there's a lot of individualist anarchist takes on crime think, and they're all over Anarchist Library, and they're in 1,000 different zines that got passed around from the 90s to the modern day. Yeah, talking about individualist anarchism. There's two different sectors of anarchism: individualist anarchism, social anarchism. KX says, this isn't a deep point, and not that Israel is totally unique in this factor, but man, that society really is sick, more thoroughly than most. The things that average people, even kids, will say, yeah, I remember years ago, and I think I've said this on stream numerous times, there's this guy, I don't remember, I think, maybe I can, I think I remember the name of his channel. Is it Corey Gill Schuster? Is that what it is? I think it's Corey Gill Schuster. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah. This guy, Corey Gill Schuster, he goes around Israel and Palestine, and he literally just asks them questions. And I was watching him years back, well before the, Palestinian genocide in its current incarnation had even really begun. And I was so disturbed when he would ask questions to average Israeli citizens. It was very uncommon for him to find an Israeli citizen that did not say extremely fascistic things about the Palestinians. Whereas when he would go and he would ask Palestinians questions about the Israelis, they were so open and accepting, and they just wanted peace. And they really just wanted it all to be over. And they saw the Israelis as humans. They just were so sad about the circumstances. And the Israelis saw the Palestinians as like animals that they just wanted to execute. Like they would just say terrifyingly violent, genocidal stuff. And this was years ago. And so like, that's why I was never going to, there was never a bone in my body that was going to side with Israel in this struggle. As soon as this all began, as soon as like, the Palestinian genocide in its current form began, there was no way that I could have even for a single moment thought of siding with Israel after hearing that shit. I just knew that they were 100% in the wrong. And it's a genocidal ethno-state, straight up. Yeah, I mean, as Zal says, it's the result of a fascistic education. It's exactly right. In their schools, they teach how they always say this shit where they're like, Palestinian children are raised to hate Jews. That's not true. What is true, however, is that Israelis are raised to hate Arabs. That is 100% true. There are videos of them in school being taught to hate Arabs, especially to be taught to think of Palestinians as subhuman terrorists. So it's back to its projection. The right wing is all about projection. They accuse their enemies of that which they are guilty. KX says, which is surprising to me. I was gaslighted into believing this was way more of a both sides issues than it was, and for longer than I should have. Yeah, I mean, and here in America, of course, we're brainwashed into that. It's a both sides issue, and honestly, with a little bit of a Israel is just defending itself kind of twist, right? Yeah. Baby Bingus says, sorry, that name, Baby Bingus. Do you think you'll create an updated video on Rojava once things settle down? There's tons of misinfo being spread about them capitulating, which isn't what happened. I don't think maybe, I might create an addendum to that Liberation in Action video. But I'm still trying to avoid being in a current events channel. But it's possible. It's such a big topic right now, but I personally don't want to comment on it until it's done with. I don't want to make predictions. I want to see what happens in these negotiations. I'm kind of getting the vibe that these negotiations aren't going to end in them being absorbed because the Syrian state is being too hardline. They're just not giving them enough concession. And so it's possible that they're just not going to do any of the stuff they've negotiated. Baby Bingus is an amazing username. So funny. Choselist says, Abdullah Öcalan did call to disband the PKK, didn't he? Kind of, but also he doesn't have that power. He can't. And he didn't. Yeah, it's like not an easy subject because they even said they're like, until Öcalan is free, we're not going to be taking any orders from Öcalan. Part of me thinks it might have just been terms for his release. Like he might have had to say that to get released. Yeah, he's under duress. And that's what people in the PKK said. Also, as somebody mentioned, the PKK is not Rojava. This is one of the annoying things about all this reporting. Okay. People just keep saying, oh, the PKK did X. That means Rojava did X. Or the SDF did this. So that means that Rojava did this. No, the SDF is not Rojava. The PKK is not Rojava. Rojava, or as it is now called, DAANES, does not equal SDF, does not equal PKK. But everybody keeps like, it's so annoying. Like everybody's got an opinion, but nobody has knowledge. I mean, the SDF at least is like, has a large part to do with Rojava. It's a big part of the army of Rojava. Sure, but the SDF is not DAANES. Like, the SDF is a coalition army with the Syrian government and the United States. So it's not Rojava. It's like they could, if they, for example, if the SDF were absorbed into Syria, that would not mean Rojava was absorbed into Syria. That's not what that would mean. I mean, under certain circumstances it could, but that is not what that necessarily means. Oh, I wasn't criticizing what you said, Chosalist. I was more talking about the broad commentary on the topic. I'm sorry if I sounded like I was picking you out. I wasn't. But I just wanted to be very clear. Rotten Mouse says, this is why I hate reading stuff on left politics. You read about a few small regions in Syria and Turkey, and you got to remember like 20 different acronyms. That is so real. That's so real. Oh my God. So true. Knowledge in Defense says, like saying the Black Army are separate from Makhno-Shivina. Not really, because the Black Army wasn't a coalition army. Like, if the Black Army had been a coalition army between, you know, Russia and Ukraine and even some foreign actors, then that would be synonymous. But the Black Army wasn't. The Black Army was Ukrainian. So, like, that's not really the equivalent. I wouldn't say that's a good parallel. Stream freezing? Okay, well, it shows that I'm still on stream on my side. The SDF includes portions of the Syrian military, non-DAANES affiliated militia groups, and the DAANES Federation of Militias. I don't think it includes U.S. soldiers, but it is also interacts with the U.S. military. The SDF is the main mechanism by which Rojava interacts with the U.S. military. Knowledge and Defense says, how would you compare them to the CNT-FAI militias being co-opted by the Republican state? That, unfortunately, seems like our strongest parallel right now. And we'll see how that goes. Very, very disturbing to see that parallel. I will say they're not rushing into it. The CNT-FAI seemed way more willing to enter into to negotiate the dismantling of what they had done. Right now, it seems like the SDF is in the negotiations, but it's not. It seems like it's slower to capitulation. We'll find out, though. Ismavolt nails it. The CNT-FAI militias were gifted to the Republicans by the CNT-FAI Barcelona leadership. That's kind of what I'm saying. It's like the CNT-FAI like caved in a really big way. Like, it's not to say that General Lister obviously had a huge part of it because they were just sacking the communes basically, but like the CNT-FAI leadership, portions of the leadership made big mistakes. Whereas it seems like the SDF is way slower. Like they are not just serving it up on a silver platter. They make it sound like that, but in practice, it doesn't seem to be that way. So we'll find out what happens. Carcoal Dev says, should economic planning, central or decentral, have a political priority over expert advice? Yeah, unfortunately, that is how it needs to be. It needs to be that the council's word is the last word, and experts are only there for to be consultants, because otherwise you get technocracy. But I will say that could have negative effects at times. It could mean that the councils could make bad decisions if they don't want to listen to the experts. Zal says, I'm so confused as to why the CNT-FAI even had a leadership. What they had was essentially people who were delegated to be emissaries and to make political or have political discussions with the Republic, and people who were administrators and so on. And I think sometimes they delegated too much. I think that's part of the problem. KX says, I'm just saying because everyone on the left hears a certain... Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I don't think leadership is necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, leaders don't necessarily equal rulers. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Sorry, I'm just checking my messages. So, yeah, I am thinking the stream will probably end in not too terribly long. If anybody has any last questions, kind of wrapping up here. Sorry for this one being short. Yeah, as we're drawing to a close, just want to remind everybody to like the stream. If you are watching, if you've watched like numerous of my videos, numerous of the streams, and you haven't subscribed, you should click subscribe. Obviously, that's a big help to the growth of the channel. If you support the work that I'm doing here, you should go become a patron at my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Anark. I'll even put the link in the chat because I'm just such a nice guy like that. Also, don't forget, I'm on Means TV. So if you want to go subscribe to Socialist Netflix, that is essentially what it is. A bunch of socialist YouTubers of various kinds who have made a streaming platform, and I'm on that streaming platform. They are starting to put more anarchists on the streaming platform, so probably we should be rewarding them for putting more anarchism on their platform. It is also a worker cooperative. I'll tell you all from experience. I'm part of the worker cooperative's decision-making process, so it is. And yeah, no, it's a pretty cool project. Don't forget to use my affiliate code so I get a cut of the subscription fee that you do there. You'll also get a discount for having used my affiliate code. Yeah, I appreciate you all showing up. Yeah, so sorry. I mean, it looks like these last questions people are asking are kind of long questions. Oh, there's a good one. I can answer that one quick. Masuda Trent says, did Anark ever say his favorite Ghibli movie? No, but I think it's Princess Mononoke. I love Princess Mononoke. Beautiful music. Animation is gorgeous. Probably the only like action scenes you're really going to find in a Ghibli movie, not literally, but some of the best action scenes you're going to find. I just love all the characters. It's so gorgeous. The message is incredibly good. Damn, that movie. Also, the dub is excellent. Like, it's one of those animes, you do not have to watch the sub when it comes to Princess Mononoke. The dub for Princess Mononoke is impeccable. Phenomenal. One of the best dubs you'll ever hear. They just killed it on that movie. So anyway, I appreciate you all showing up. I'll see y'all next time.